Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's great to have all of you with us for another night. It's International Men's Day. Now, hopefully that means something to you. It's a time to celebrate all the men in life. Yes, men have been complaining that women get all the love, but today is a day to highlight the male aspect of our society. Now, according to the International Men's Day website, it's an opportunity for people everywhere of goodwill to appreciate and celebrate the men in their lives and the contribution they make to society for the greater good of all. Now, according to the latest Bahamas National Statistical Institute's 2022 census, out of a population just over 398,000, there are 191,667 men in the country. That number makes up 48.1% of the entire population. Despite what you may have heard, men play a pivotal role in our country. Their father, brother, uncle, cousin, mentor, colleague, even friend. Just some of the roles men bear the name of. There's no doubt that men really make a difference. There's no way, absolutely no way, no matter how much you try or how much you believe, you can live without us. We play a pivotal role. Well, the country's leader touting the role men play, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis, this morning addressing the Small Business Development Center Men's Initiative. And what's important is his story. Take a look.
I know what it is to feel the weight of the world pressing down on you, to wonder if there's a future waiting beyond the horizon. I know what it is to dream of more while the world tells you less. I walked that road, and I carried its dust with me even now. This is personal because I know the difference it makes when someone reaches out, when someone believes in you enough to say, you matter, you can rise. For me, it was mentors, family, and faith, and yes, Toastmasters, that carried me from those barefoot days to this moment. But what of the boys who have no one? What of the young men who are left to fend for themselves, lost in a storm of neglect and despair? I cannot look at them and not see myself. That is why this fight burns within me. It is a fight for every boy who wonders if this life has a meaning. I've seen the statistics. I know the odds. But statistics cannot capture the quiet pain of a boy left behind. They cannot tell the story of a young man who could have been great if only someone had believed in him. And they cannot silence the voice within me that says, do something, change this. And this is a mission. A mission to ensure that no boy grows up believing that his circumstances define him. A mission to remind every young man that his worth is not measured by where he starts, but by the courage he shows in rising above.
Now, promoting the quality of men in our society is the job of the Ministry of Social Services, Information and Broadcasting. I bet you didn't realize that. That's a part of the portfolio. Minister responsible, the Honorable Miles Roeder, offered these words of advice at today's symposium organized by the Men's Desk of the Department of Gender and Family Affairs. Here's what he had to say.
Our vision for the Bahamas is to bring men together, to provide the support and encouragement needed to achieve their fullest potential. We are laying the foundation for a comprehensive framework, a network of organizations committed to the holistic growth and empowerment of all males. This initiative is built on collaboration, mentorship, and proactive engagement. It's about creating spaces where men can connect, share experiences, and uplift one another. Every man in the Bahamas deserves the opportunity to live a life of purpose. To the father striving to be a role model, to the brother aiming to contribute positively to his community, to that man that may be searching for a direction, we stand with you. Our goal is to reach men in the workforce, our elderly men who still have wisdom to share, and boys in our schools. We want to create spaces for boys and men to become agents of change. We want to ensure that no man is left behind.
As there we have it. So obviously, an initiative, ongoing things that are making things quite different in our country for men. And I believe that tonight it's important to focus on the men that are making significant contributions, that are doing an excellent job in what it is that they actually do. That's important. The Bahamas, we are blessed to have outstanding men that are doing amazing things all day, that are making a difference in everything that they put their hands to do. Now, I could list a whole long scribe and scroll of them, but you know them. These are young men and old men who have purpose in their selves and in their minds that they will be a part of society that builds up and not tears down. They are men who have decided that they will be a part of leading and supporting their families, not destroying them. They're the men in the country that have decided that they're going to lead from out front and not from behind. They are the men in our country who have decided that they're going to contribute to other young men by mentorship and spending time nurturing them and not trying to distract them and involve them in criminal activity. There are men in our country who understand what it is to work extremely hard so that they're able to provide and take care of their families. There are men in our country who understand what it is to study and show themselves approved so that they can be qualified and be able to take up positions in just about every aspect of our society and all of the various sectors of our society. Then there are men who are pace setters. They are the ones who are charting new territories. They are the ones who are achieving the first in various areas. They are the ones who are breaking the barriers and making the successes. So yes, there are men in this country who are to be saluted tonight. And if you are in your home or somewhere out watching this, or on your phone watching it, and there is a man in your vicinity who you believe has fit into one of these categories or is fitting into one of these categories, take a time out right now and salute them and tell them, thank you for doing what it is you do. I'll even pause so you can say it. If you're in the control room, tell somebody, thank you for doing what it is you do. If you're in the newsroom, tell them, thank you for doing what it is that you do. Wherever you are right now, and there is a man who has been outstanding, pause and tell them thank you. You see, it is something we don't do enough of in our country. We honor people at certain occasions, we honor people when they're passed, but rarely do we take the time out to say thank you just for doing what it is you did in this day. And that makes a difference. When we have men fulfilling purpose in their lives, at the end of the day, there are no homicides to go to. When we have men who are constructively involved in sports and activities and other things with other young men, then we won't have a shooting to cover. So it makes good sense that when they do something great, you say thank you for contributing to building our society. So tonight, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about how men can advance what they're doing, how men can take care of their own mental health, how men can overcome fears of physical concerns because they get regular checkups, how men can be uplifted and have successful lives. That's what we're doing, and that's what my guests will discuss tonight. You are watching The Rundown on International Men's Day. We continue this conversation right after the break. Stay with us.
Chapter One Bookstore at University of the Bahamas believes in the power of words. They have your next great adventure. or that affordable textbook you need. You can go anywhere with a good book. To the library, to have coffee in a cafe, to the pool, to a cozy chair at home. And when you finish your book, you can browse for more good books from Chapter One. Chapter One Bookstore, open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., or shop online all day, every day at chapteronebooks.store.
Our company has a simple philosophy, open hands. What do open hands mean? If you keep your hands closed, nothing comes in, nothing goes out. If you keep your hands open, a lot of things comes in, a lot of things goes out. We cannot expect to be a successful company without blessing our community and blessing our country.
My good friend and valued client, Dominic Stirrup, approached me following a meeting we had and told me of the idea that he had of feeding 10,000 Bahamians on Thanksgiving.
There was a lot of details to put together, had to figure out how to get it done. But at the end, it was worth it. At the end, it gave me a heart of gratitude to know that our company is reaching out to so many persons.
We invite you on a journey to witness an extraordinary chapter in the story of the Bahamas Striping Group of Companies, a tale of compassion, unity, and the true spirit of Thanksgiving.
Is the Little Caesars Stuffed Crust Pizza. Get more pizza for less money. Only $12. It's a whole new level of pizza with cheese stuffed crust so spectacular that there's nothing left.
Pizza.
A delicious pepperoni pizza with the crust stuffed with lots of cheese and brushed with butter and garlic flavor and sprinkled with Parmesan cheese. Hot and ready Thursday to Saturday between 4 and 8 for only $12. Simply irresistible. And only at Little Caesars.
And welcome back to The Rundown. It's great to have all of you with us tonight. And I'm, of course, communicating and chatting online with all of you on social media in the Lion Stand. So it's good to be talking to them. And those of you on YouTube, to be able to hit them up and comment to them. It's great having all of you online with us tonight, as well as those of you watching traditional, more conventional means of television tonight. Well, mental health is a buzzword these days as persons globally are being encouraged to take care of this issue. Mental health impacts your everyday life. For men, it's sometimes addressed, but unfortunately, most times, it's absolutely ignored. Here tonight to talk about this psychiatric medical officer at the Bahamas Department of Corrections and Royal Bahamas Defense Force Reserve Senior Lieutenant Dr. Sean Knowles. Wow, Dr. Sean, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So it's International Men's Day, and of course, I know it's a taboo topic because men probably saying, man, don't talk about no health thing on my day, man. Let's talk about something else. But we have to, because we're seeing so many men encounter challenges that they could have avoided, or seeing their lives snuffed out early because they didn't take care of warning signs or get checked up. Let's start right there. Are men still not taking their health serious enough?
Yeah, so anecdotally, I would definitely say yes, and that's based on my experience, both as a physician as well as the psychiatric medical officer at the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services. And even some of the research that we have available would attest to that, you know, there's so much more that needs to happen in terms of men getting the help that they need for their mental health.
Why do you believe, I think we all know the answers to this, but I think we sometimes need to hear it. What is this fear? Is it fear, first of all? And what is keeping that connection from being made?
I think it's a combination of things, Clint. So for one, you know, in our culture, you know, men are basically, even from as young as being boys, are taught not to express themselves.
Right.
And that is something, unfortunately, that contributes more harm than good. In addition to that, I think the lack of education about mental health, and that is definitely very, very important, to the point where I think it's necessary now at this point in time for us to advocate having a mental health curriculum in our schools.
You believe is that necessary now?
Oh, it's most definitely. There's no question in my mind about it, because of the amount of persons who are dealing with mental health issues and challenges. And keep in mind, too, that we've just came out of a pandemic that would have contributed greatly to persons developing mental health disorders, such as anxiety disorders and depression, and also persons who would have been impacted by Hurricane Dorian in 2019. And so from at a national level, we really need to address this issue. of mental illness in our country.
I want to slide into the issue of mental illness because we've talked about this before, you and I, in another place. We talked about the fear of what could possibly happen years down the line if we don't arrest the amount of assistance people need right now in dealing with mental health. And I remember talking to you right after Dorian, and us talking about the amount of professionals that are going to be needed to help the amount of people who have been impacted. Here we are years later, that probably fell through. It didn't happen. And so we have out there a lot of people who are in need of help, or who have serious triggers. Some of them tell me, I've spoken to so many of them, they tell me that they can't take the sound of rain. It rains or gets dark and something happens to them. Simply, you ask them, were you able to get counseling? Well, not really, is what they say. When somebody tell you not really, that means it's probably no. How are we going to fix this?
Well, one thing that we need to do is come together as a nation, all stakeholders, in order to address this problem. I can give you itemized all of the issues that we need to address, but based on my experience. And so one of them is the lack of resources that is available. And it's a global issue. Essentially, 2%, on average, 2% of health budgets is what's covering mental health, which is not enough. Think about persons on the Family Islands, and we have to keep in mind that we are unique in that aspect. A lot of persons in our Family Islands, anecdotally, are not getting the mental health that they need. And, being Nassau-centric, we only have one outpatient resource center for mental health. Just one, the Community Council and Assessment Center. And it's not a lack of my colleagues trying their very best. It's just that it's so heavy, inundated. Yeah, overwhelming, absolutely. And so right now, one thing that we are definitely talking about in terms of my peers is what can we do now to broaden the scope of providing resources for our people.
So is it the fact that we don't have people who are able to treat and see people, or is it the fact that because of resources, you can't hire people to do these things?
Yeah, it's probably both, actually, because we are in dire need of more psychologists, to the point, where our schools now require psychologists and not be able to help persons who are dealing with even learning disabilities, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as an example. So the resources are definitely needed, and we definitely need more manpower who can be able to assist in this endeavor.
This is heartening because we're talking every day. You see it all over international media, the evolution of mental health, right? And the things that researchers are now finding out, the various disorders that are now being discovered. People are being diagnosed with new things that you'd never heard before. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, who's catering to the sector here in the Bahamas? Are we able to monitor what's happening and be able to properly diagnose why somebody's acting the way they're acting? And hey, this is what you're experiencing. It's not strange that you're doing this. This is a study that just came out, and this is what you're doing. Here's how we can address and treat you. If our people are not getting that, then that means they're continuously worsening or becoming frustrated because they can't get the help they need. And then we start seeing other repercussions of mental health. Suicides, crime, people not able to function anymore. You have been stationed at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Talk a little bit about the challenges we face there, because here it is again, people, we hope that if they go to jail, they're able to get some level of rehabilitation and they're able to be able to get some kind of care that can bring them out and make them better. And the fear is, because of the state of the institution, that can't happen effectively enough.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I want to say, thanks to the Commissioner, Don Clare, he made it his mandate that he recognized the importance of mental health. And so he started this initiative to incorporate a mental health unit within the walls of the prison system. And so, with that being said, we're trying to build up our team, and we're working under the consultation of Dr. Nelson Clark. Myself being a psychiatric medical officer, and then we have 2 psychologists. And so we're growing and trying to deal with the issues that are needed within the prison system. And if I can say this, there's no question in my mind, there's a correlation between mental illness and the crime that we're being faced with in this nation.
You believe there is?
Oh, absolutely. And we would need to test that to confirm, but anecdotally speaking, definitely. Because, for instance, a lot of our men, it's almost on a daily basis, we're losing our men, through crime and violence. A lot of our men are dealing with anger management. They don't know how to resolve conflicts peacefully.
Conflict resolution. It comes up almost in every crime.
Exactly. On top of that, substance use. And I cannot begin to describe how amazed I am at the amount of young people under the age of 24 and even 20 who are consuming, for example, alcohol, using marijuana, which is, of course, an illicit drug, and even the vaping. And the reason why that is important because it affects the brain's development. The brain, as we know, based on research, does not complete development until about age 21 to 24. And so young people who are using substances are not only more likely to develop addictions to the point where they're going to be in and out of rehab, but also to the point where they suffer physical consequences such as memory impairment, can't communicate. And for lack of a better word, it dumbens you to the point where you're not able to make the most of your learning. And so one thing I'm advocating, and I know people probably hate me for this, is I would like to see the age limit for any kind of substances be at 24, where you have to produce an ID to show that you're, going to a restaurant to drink beer, or if you're going to buy a vape. And that is part of the plan in order to protect our people and also to help the vexing problems due to
because it's
mental illness.
impairing their judgment in conflicts. It's impairing their judgment in fighting. And and when you talk to them, you're finding out that because of the state of mind that they were in, that's what they resorted to. Are you hearing regret after the fact?
In terms of persons
haven't committed the crime. Are they saying, boy, I was high or I was drunk and so almost like they're saying that was the reason why I did this. Otherwise, I would not have done this.
Yeah, and it's various issues, but for the most part, in my dealing with one-on-one with for example, the male inmates, a lot of them do have regret. But what is far more important is they're getting the rehabilitation and they're learning what is important now to move forward. Very important that we don't judge because it can be any one of us who are incarcerated, but for the grace of God. The challenge that we're having now is, again, once persons who have mental illnesses, once they leave, what plan are we going to put in place to be able to help
You can get that wonderful care while you're locked up and you're seeing somebody on a regular basis. When you're out there, there's no mandate to see anybody or you don't know who to go to.
Exactly.
And so you suffer in silence.
Exactly. And again, the Community Counseling Assessment Center is really just inundated. I hate to have to put the burden on them. So the challenge now moving forward, one aspect is we're going to probably need to open up a mental health facility as an outpatient center to be able to help persons who would have been incarcerated. So,
is that serious?
It is very serious, Clint. I sit here before you today and tell you the seriousness of it that we're seeing. And it's to the point now, again, as I will reiterate, important for us to have a mental health curriculum, starting from the 5th grade. The reason why I'm saying the 5th grade is because it's at that age where a child recognizes, I'm not feeling right mentally, and they don't know how to express it because they're not being taught. Education is one of the most powerful weapons.
From grade 5?
I would say, from my encounter, yes. As young as grade 5. So we just had a young boy, 8 years of age, allegedly committing suicide.
Correct.
That should frighten us as a nation. That scares me. And so the demand is great. We are a small nation. There's no reason for us to have to suffer like this. And so I applaud the International Men's Day Committee for having these initiatives under the theme Positive Male Role Models, because that's one important aspect that we recognize in able to help our boys be able to get through the challenges, having positive male influences in their lives.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about how do we look for the signs and how people who are watching can look for the signs, even the men around in their lives.
Sure.
And what help can we get? Because men obviously, a lot of times, internalize and don't want to talk about it, don't want to open up about it because we have to put on that image that I'm okay when you're not okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that when we come back. We're going to continue this important conversation. You're watching The Rundown with Dr. Sean Knowles. We're back after this. Stay close.
By giving unconditionally, not expecting anything in return, I thought was a wonderful way of showing this love. And I believe that it is love that truly draws people. And so I thought we could cover a lot more people by feeding. Volunteers, they have truly been sold.
My passion is to help, and I thank God for what I can do through the help of Bahamas Feeding Network.
Ready to score big on unbeatable savings? Tune into What's Trending's Deals and Steals with Ace Hardware every Wednesday at 6 p.m. starting in November. Save on items from power tools to paint, lawn care to Christmas decor. They've got the essentials you need to tackle any project at prices that can't be beat. Dive into their special offers up to 50% off select items. Need a new grill for those backyard barbecues? How about a fresh coat of paint to revamp your space? They've got you covered. That's every Wednesday at 6 p.m. starting in November. Don't miss out on Deals and Steals with Ace Hardware.
Got termites and need to get rid of them fast? Trust Rentokil Initial. With over 60 years experience in the Bahamas, the global brand, training, and expertise can't be beat. Only Rentokil Initial gives you a 3-year warranty and payment plan options on termite fumigation. No one can match the range of treatments we offer, such as fumigation, pre-construction treatments, termite monitoring, and more. No matter where you are in the Bahamas, we will come to you. When it comes to complete termite eradication, there's only one name, Rentokil Initial.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking tonight with Dr. Sean Knowles in this segment. More questions on International Men's Day and what we're facing, how men can deal and cope with challenges that they're facing. I want to talk about that because one of the things we find is that it's very difficult to get men to open up. We don't like to talk about things. We internalize more than we talk about it. And sometimes, no matter how rough and heavy it gets, we don't say anything about it. And many people may see warning signs in their families and not know that this could be leading to something further. What could they do about it? So what are some warning signs that a man may be in trouble?
Yeah, sure. So definitely, number one, I would say, is if there's a change in his mood. You know, if you notice a male in your life who was socially outgoing and then all of a sudden now is more probably angry, very irritable, agitated. So that should suggest to you that something's going on. In our, I guess in all of the age groups, but particularly in our young population, if you see an increased use of substances, that should definitely make you question. And even more importantly, you know, suicide is one of the worst case scenarios you ever want to encounter. Based on the STEP survey that was done by the Ministry of Health and Wellness back in 2018, looking at persons 18 and over on 6 islands, also New Providence, we recognized that there was 6.3% of our population, which is about 17,000 people wanted to or thought about committing suicide. And of that number, it was a ratio of 2 to 1, 2 for men to 1 female. And so definitely highlighting how important mental illness is in our country and the stresses that our people are dealing with. Financial stress, emotional stress, untreated mental health illness, just to name a few.
Can the stresses of life lead to mental illness? Not being able to pay that bill, not being able to meet that commitment or need that a loved one or a family member is asking for. Yeah. Can that eventually lead to mental illness? Yeah. Talk about how that happens.
Absolutely. Well, you know, just looking at the STEP survey, we recognize those were some of the key issues that people are dealing with. And I put it to you this way. Again, anecdotally, I don't know if you've taken a look around on New Providence, you see more homeless people who are, you know, out there. And
Social services confirmed that, saying that this is the first time they've seen so much more men coming in needing shelter.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they were either put out of their homes because they couldn't perform or provide, or they weren't working and they were put out and they had no place to live.
Yeah, exactly. And so even in terms of treating mental illness, the best approach would be a holistic approach where you're treating all aspects. And we call that the biopsychosocial spiritual model. So the social part of it basically speaks for itself because, you know, at the end of the day, I can give the best medication, I can also give the best talk therapy, but if he has nowhere to live, he has no way of taking care of himself, he's unemployed, he has children to take care of, he is going to relapse one way or another. And so those issues need to be addressed. And so it's incumbent upon our government, I don't mean to put too much pressure on our government, but for all of us to come together. The Ministry, again, of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Education, Department of Social Services, all of us are more working together to help to address the mental needs of our nation.
We look around our country, we see men walking around every day. Some out of it, some seem to be on their game, and some stressed out. There's still a stigma that as a man, I'm not going to walk into a clinic or a hospital or medical facility and say, talk to me because I ain't crazy. I just have a rough time right now, going through a difficult time right now. Right. How do we get men to understand that you not walking to that clinic could have an adverse effect on you and your family? You need to go in and sit down. How do we get that stigma removed?
Yeah, again, I go back to the fundamentals. Education, educating our people. Again, in our schools, in our high schools, but even also in the workplace. And I think it's very important that even our businesses and our government organizations and banking, et cetera, have at least one day out of the year where you bring in somebody to talk about mental issues and make it mandatory for the staff to be available. That way we can educate them and help to sensitize them of the importance of taking care of their mental health.
Can you be cured for mental health?
So when we talk about cure, again, the approach is multifaceted. It's not as simple as saying giving you a pill.
Right,
Basically you have to provide the psychotherapy, the talk therapy, getting persons to learn to talk about their problems. We call, the cognitive behavioral therapy. Understanding why you're having these negative thoughts that's causing you to think about depression or to feel depressed or even to think about suicide or even to turn to the alcohol. So that is very, very critical in terms of the management. And for some mental illnesses, of course, we recognize that up to 60% is due to genetics. For example, schizophrenia and bipolar disorder.
That's genetic. In other words, that's passed on.
Yes, exactly. And so the important point is if you have a family history of it, you recognize it from a young age. And so you can be able to address the issues much thoroughly and, of course, to ensure that that person is getting the necessary help that they need.
What should family members be saying to other family, if they notice a male in their family that is going through, who looks concerned? How do you approach that situation?
Yeah, I would say definitely tactfully. You don't want to come off as being very judgmental. You express to that person, how important they are to you and how you recognize that, hey, you're not sleeping, you're not looking like yourself, and something's going on. Let me go with you to see a psychiatrist or a mental health professional. Let's get you the help that you need. I think if you break it down that way, as opposed to putting pressure to the point where you're making a male feel that I'm less than a human being because, I can't pay my bill or because I'm dealing with issues of life, it causes more harm than good. So you always want to have that sense of compassion and empathy and helping that person understand the importance that, that they are to you and getting them the help that they need. And I would have had persons, for example, colleagues from, who would have brought their fellow colleagues to be seen because they recognize that, hey, he or she just wasn't doing, well. And so they wanted to get help for them. And that shows the importance of being our brother's keeper.
When we talk about mental health, particularly among our men, do you believe that we have avenues where men can find the support that they need in life? Or are our men in the Bahamas pretty much living in isolation? And when I talk about that, I think about so many organizations that can be a support system. So you don't even need sometimes to go to a professional psychiatrist if you're connected to a network where you can talk with people and people can get advice and so forth. We have certain clubs and organizations that cater to that. Are we still living in isolation too much in this country?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think yes and no. I say yes because, there are some persons who, for whatever reason, may not be a part of an organization.
Right.
And of course, for those of us who are a part, and I can use myself as an example, I'm very appreciative of at least 4 pastors who have, mentored me. And I can call, I have the phone numbers, I can call them anytime. And that means a lot to me because there are days when I do have bad days and I need to talk to someone. And so, even in various clubs, and even if you want to really, really be, intentional about it, even the bar, believe it or not, where men can come together, hopefully not to say to drink alcohol to the extent of becoming drunk or intoxicated, but at least to be able to talk and understand, what's going on and to get sound advice. And the Bible talks about that in Proverbs 27. So as iron sharpens iron, one man, sharpens the countenance of another just by being there for that person.
And sometimes it's just casually having a system of friends and network that works. I know, for example, here at ZNS, the men in our production department, our control room, they have a little network where they go outside and they meet in the daytimes under a tree, and they talk through situations and they talk through problems. And so while people may think they're just out under the tree, they're not. They're actually counseling each other and working with each other, and that's their avenue and that's their safe space to be able to deal with the issues that they face. And it was so profound when I learned about that. And saw them actually helping each other through problems. And hats off to them for that. So you may find a casual network like that works.
Definitely. And you know, that's important, because really and truly, when you can find your tribe where you're comfortable, where you find that safe space, it makes a tremendous difference in one's life. And so I would encourage, you know, every Bahamian male under the sound of my voice, you know, to find someone who can be there for you, who can be your brother's keeper, whom you can perhaps mentor, whom you can perhaps pour into, because at the end of the day, we all need each other, and we're one nation.
One of the statistics that I've shown, in particular crime and domestic violence, when it involves crime and domestic violence, is the fact that you have issues with relationships and so forth. Can women play a role in these? Obviously, the women play a role, right?
Definitely.
And sometimes, I guess the point I'm getting across to is, do women need to be aware sometimes of how they deal with men in their life and the demands they place on men in their life, because it can sometimes have a negative impact?
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. And I will even go as far as say being a mother to a son, encouraging him to talk, not looking down upon him or telling him you shouldn't cry or express yourself, or that you consider them to be soft. Or using these pejorative terms that have a profound impact on that young man's life. So most definitely, even wives being understanding, you know, of their husbands, working together. You know, if he's unable to pay that bill, do not make him feel that he's less of a man.
You're good for nothing, man. Why are you here? Why are you here?
Exactly. It doesn't work that way. And I'm sure God is not pleased about that if we consider the importance of men in this nation. And biblically, you know, men are supposed to be the head of the homes. And that's going to stand as a fundamental principle. And so we as men need that support. We need the support and understanding of people in our tribe to be able to help us when those tough days do come.
So we've talked about men who are incarcerated and which you've found the challenges to be. We've talked about men in society who have relationships in homes and so forth. What about young men, our youth, where we see that challenge? And we started talking a bit about it, but I want to spend a little more time on it, because it's being able to, like they say, bend that tree while it's young. How do we win the war that we're facing with our young men, considering what they're up against with social media, considering what they're up against with, I mean, all of these influencers who are around? How do we win the war on getting them to be more focused, more productive, more driven on their careers, and understanding how to resolve conflict?
Yeah, definitely. So again, I go back to education. That education, I think, is going to pave the way to really and truly change the course of our nation. Definitely putting in place measures from a national perspective where you can protect our young people. Again, I'm talking about the alcohol. Eventually, perhaps recreational marijuana is going to be legalized. So we need to put these measures in place to make sure that persons under the age of 24, that they are protected so that they don't end up becoming a victim to the society vices that we're dealing with. And so education is fundamental. More, and very, very important that more men's groups continue to do their part in mentoring, being positive male role models. And it's always good to have that aspect in our society, because not every boy has a father figure in his home who is either a positive influence or who perhaps is deadbeat. And so if we can have more positive male role models, I think that, along with education, putting policies in place that can protect our people, and upscaling our resources, getting people to understand the importance of seeking help when you need it. All of that, I think, within 10 years, Clint, we'll have a better nation, even seeing the decrease in the crime issue.
That's a positive way to look at it. I like that. Thank you. You're a specialist in gambling addiction. REC, is that seen more in men or women?
So let me say this. So we need more research. We are planning, the Gambling Addiction Committee, we plan to launch next year during the Gambling Addiction Awareness Month in March. We're going to launch a survey, at least here in Providence, to get a better idea. I can say from my experience, though, the majority of times, especially when I worked at the San Luis Rehabilitation Center, and when we had our substance addiction and behavioral addiction our clinic, the majority of persons we saw were females who were sent to the clinic by the courts because of issues related to their gambling.
Females,
yes.
gambling.
Yes, but globally, it's reported that men tend to have the higher.
But in the
gambling.
Bahamas, it's showing females are addicted more to gambling than men.
We're going to definitely test that to see. We'll get a better, at least on New Providence, get a better idea of what's happening. And so research is critical.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that's absolutely interesting. I know we have another guest in the next segment, so this will be a closing segment. I'll give you the final comments as we talk about Men's Day and our focus on men.
Yeah, so as a nation, very important that we take mental health seriously. Even being aware of the words that you use on a day-to-day basis. You know, calling someone crazy and laughing about it, that can have a profound impact on someone who's dealing with issues to the point where they will not seek help because they don't want to be categorized as being someone who is less of a human being. And so, again, I talk about education. I'm going to continue to hammer that because we've recognized that mental illness is youth mental challenges. It starts from the youth. Even a baby can develop anxiety, if a stranger anxiety.
What?
We're seeing a lot of persons, and again, research confirms this, who are having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And of course, that child being punished because, you know, the parents don't understand what they're going through adds more issues, adds more of problems to that child. And so recognizing that in the school system that if a child has a learning problem, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are being rude or, you know, being unmannerly, but it could be that they do have a mental illness in the form of ADHD, recognizing that. So instead of adding more trauma on top of what that person is going through, get them the help. And of course, in order to be able to do that, Bahamas, we need more resources, we need more education, we need more persons to be committed to helping our young people.
Well, thank you so much. I believe that we have so much potential in this country. When we look at Bahamian men in this country, they're excelling in business, they're excelling in the creative arts, they're excelling in sports, they're excelling in just about every aspect of their lives. And I think we just need to be able to focus more energy on supporting the ones that are going out there and trying to make a difference. Those men who are busy working with our young men who may have challenges and who need the support to say, listen, I'm going to continue this. We need to support for the program, we need to support for resources, and they get that. And they get it. We cannot talk about making our country better and we're not willing to invest the resources into the things that will make our country better.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, if we want to see change in our country, we want to see progress, we're going to have to make very, very critical, important decisions. And it's going to take money. We need money in order to have these resources available to help our people.
I'll tell you right now, thank you for the work that you're doing on this International Men's Day. We salute men like you who are on the front line trying to make a change and make our country better. We honor the work that you're doing. Thank you, sir, for being with us on the show tonight.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from the International Men's Day Bahamas Committee and find out what they've done and what they're doing and what they're seeing. You're watching The Rundown. We're back after this. Stay close.
You're going to get more to be thankful for from BTC this November. They're teaming up with What's Trending to give away a $200 Visa gift card and a Bahamas Air voucher. Just email the latest paid receipt from either your BTC postpaid or fiber internet account to saleshq@znsbahamas.com and you will be entered to be one of the lucky 2 winners whose names will be announced on What's Trending on November 28th, Thanksgiving Day. More to be thankful for from BTC, only on What's Trending.
Hardware is the helpful place. Everything you need under one roof, from electrical, paint, plumbing, outdoor, barbecue, automotive, lawn and garden, pet supply, houseware, and seasons. Hurricane season is now here, so for all your hurricane needs, we have a 25% off bargain zone.
Hey, thanks. I would have given more stuff, but I didn't bring my money. I thought this was a club, and I thought everything was free. Finally know what it is now. Ace.
We're located on St. Albans Drive, West Bay Street. Open Monday to Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and closed for lunch 2 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Just What is it that you want to do? And we want to have a good time. We want to be free to do what we want to do.
In the Caribbean, the changing climate is more than just an environmental issue. It poses a threat to our health. From respiratory problems to heat stress, climate change and variability deeply impact our well-being. With our forecast through November 2024 highlighting upcoming climate conditions that will exacerbate health risks, it's important to be prepared. Here are some key climate and health insights for the months ahead.
In these months, the risk of allergic rhinitis, the risk of asthma in vulnerable people is likely to increase due to Saharan dust incursions. The risk of gastrointestinal illness due to water supply being compromised, the risk of skin infections due to wading in floodwaters, the risk of leptospirosis due to displaced rodents. They could contaminate household items, levels of morbidity and the rate of hospitalizations due to heat stress. And we may also see increases in the incidence of dengue, chikungunya and Zika cases due to increases in mosquito populations, particularly the Aedes aegypti mosquito, as a result of high temperatures and increasing humidity in the coming months.
Stay informed about weather forecasts and seasonal climate updates. Your health and well-being depend on it. For more information and updates, follow CIMH on X, Facebook, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Well, the International Men's Day Committee Bahamas has several activities on the agenda this week to commemorate this special day. Now, their goal is to promote positive role models while improving gender relations and equality to eliminate discrimination against men. Now, founding member David Wallace joins us live to discuss the committee and its role. Welcome to the show, sir. Good having you rundown.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I saw something interesting in that read just now that I didn't know existed, and that is one of the roles is to eliminate discrimination against men. Because normally we hear people say discrimination against women.
That's correct.
How are men being discriminated against?
Well, you know, the first reason I would say men are being discriminated against is when we look at, and let me use it from an educational perspective. When I look at the fact that in my time when I was growing up, we had male principals, male teachers, right? And today, when I look at the hierarchy structure, I see a lot of women as female principals, and I believe that we need more men in the schools. Now, one may say, oh, the men are not applying for it. So what I would say is increase the salary, make it attractive for more men to get back in these roles, because it's so important for men, especially when we look at the educational institution. And we need more men now. I look at the principal, Mr. Patterson at CC Sweeting, and I see a change and a turnaround, some things are happening. And so I feel that that's one of the ways that I've seen a discrimination with men. When I look at, even from the educational perspective, I look at the directors, the assistant directors, and, you know, I'm saying we need to have more men in these positions, and I think that will go a long way to turning around the situation we have happening today.
So you believe that men will make a difference if they're in the senior positions in the schools?
Yes, and let's look at example, even when we look at men in the home, men as leaders in the home, we could recall growing up for persons like myself who passed 50, we could recall while we grew up, for me, I grew up in a single parent home, while we recognized that mommy was the disciplinarian, but Daddy only had to look at us, right? He may not have been in the home. Daddy only had to look at us. He didn't have to physically beat us, and our response. And so I'm saying, if we can go back to situations like that, where male leadership, we see male leadership, we see male, our theme is positive male role model. And this is what we need to highlight. So what we need to do as a part of the transformation, there has to be more male models focused, highlighted. I'm not saying that we don't have them. What I'm saying is they have to be in the forefront. And when people see male role models, it helps in the transformation. In other words, Don't show them the negative, show them the positive. Show them a Clint Watson who was a reporter at ZNS. Look where you are today, general manager. Show them a David Williams. Show them a Dr. Sean Knowles. Show them positive male role models. And that's something they aspire to be. Dr. Knowles talked about the work in the prison, which I've been involved in for 20 years.
Wow.
One of the things I encourage the men as I go into the prisons is to share with them positive things to highlight, because these are men now who are already at the lowest. They don't need to hear anything about being down.
Right.
We need to focus on positive things, show them there's a better way. And what I need to say, I should have started with this, is that the greatest role model, I believe, is Jesus Christ. And so we need to encourage men, because I heard Dr. Knowles talk about the mental health, and he's done well on that area, helping me personally.
Right.
I attend the seminars, I get his presentation. But what we need to do is channel men back to the one individual who changes lives, who transforms heart. And proof of this, after 20 years in the prison, 90% of the men who have not returned back into the prison credit Jesus Christ. Now, the secular world does not want to hear that.
Correct.
But that's where the credit lies. And I could bring you ask me, I'll bring you men after men who have not, who've been out of prison 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, who've been on death row. And they've said, what has made the difference in my life, or the transformation, is the man called Jesus Christ.
I'm glad you said that, because, again, we always look for, okay, how do we make our men stronger? How do we make our men better? How do we make our men, more productive, more successful? And then we never go back to the basics of the man who created man.
That's correct.
And created the function and purpose of man.
That's right.
We try to do everything else to try and fix men, but never go back to the one who created man.
And again, I know I mentioned prison ministry simply because I have a lot of experience there. Because when I listen to men and they share, I've been in this program, I've tried this program, and programs are good. We're not trying to maybe put them to the bottom of the scale. But one thing, and that's the central thing they've said. I'm talking about, for instance, Dr. Knowles just now talk about drugs, alcohol, gambling addiction, sex addiction, and you could go on and on. But the one common thread, the one thing I've heard men share, is when they surrendered and they committed their life to Christ, He came into their life. He gave them victory over the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, the gambling, you name it. No longer they're perpetrating violence against their wives and their girlfriend, because why? Christ came into their lives, He changed them, and they became a different person, and now they're able to go there and share their testimony. We're talking about positive male role models. They're able to share their testimony. I once was where you was, but I made a decision for Christ to come into my life. I accepted Him, and now here I am, and I'm now able to give back, including in my own personal life.
So having said that, doesn't that mean that there is a greater role that the church needs to be playing in building society, and not separating itself from society, but actually influencing society?
I'm glad you touched that, because here's something we as members of the church have to get back to. Now, over the last 4 or 5 years after COVID, we've been doing it a lot with Pastor Henry Higgins. I did it with Pastor Carlos Reed and a number of organizations. Myself, being over 50, I like to say that I grew up in a time when we had the street meetings. We took the gospel. We went out there to the people. We went to the guys on the street. So what has happened now, we've gotten so comfortable in this church setting where we are in our benches and our air condition.
Come on now.
And we're not reaching the persons who need to be reached. And so I know, but Pastor Henry Higgins, what we did is, and this is what International Men's Day Bahamas Committee decided to do. We have a day where we go into various communities. We make our street walks. And so you're touching these same men. I can recall situations where the guys, you walk, let's say you go in Baintown, the guys smoking, they put down whatever they're smoking. You listen, they talk, they pray, and after we leave, they may pick it back up. But the point is, you're reaching these individuals, and this is what we need to do. If we want the situation in the Bahamas to turn around, and it have to, because I follow the statistics at BDOCS, Bahamas Department of Corrections. 2019 booklet indicates that 70% of the men incarcerated are under the age of 35. Wow. That's mind-boggling. one of my classes at maximum security just before COVID, and this would really place this passion in me. I had 100 men in maximum security. I said, gentlemen, how many of you grew up without a father? 80 of those men, we took the time to count. And 80 of those men indicated by hands raised, they grew up without a father.
That's a tragedy.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a tragedy.
And so we have to take this message. We have to go to men. Get up for church, listening to us today. Let's get up out of these comfortable benches. It's good to go on a Sunday. It's good to go on a Saturday. But let's go into the communities. Let's go back into the streets. Because a lot of times, these men, they're not coming into the church building. Yes. Let's go to them. Let's have programs. Let's reach them through the basketball, the sports. Let's use whatever means. And Clint, here's the problem I think we have as a church, right? Among many good things, we must preach Christ. I must not go seeking to preach my denomination, and you must not go seeking to preach your denomination or your church. Share Christ with people. He changes lives. He transforms people. And when we go to these young men, it'll amaze you the difference that it makes. When I look at the prison, and here's a program, I had a meeting last week, and I'm assisting them with it. They're now starting cell block ministry. So I want people out there to know something good is happening. Cell block ministry simply means now, no longer we have to wait for individuals to come to class or church, which does not happen for about 90% of the persons incarcerated.
Right. Correct.
We actually going into the cells and sharing with them. Of course, they're in the cell, so they're locked up, but we're able to reach them. So that's happening in the prison. And so likewise on the outside, how do we reach men? How do we reach these young men?
Yes.
Let's go to them. Let's take it to them. Take programs to them, positive programs, things that they like. And that will begin the process of transformation, because we are now being positive male role models. And they're able to see what you're doing, what I'm doing, and they're able to say now, hey, I love what he do. Guess what? I could be like him also.
And it doesn't need to be a formal organization.
No.
We don't understand the power that we have as individuals to go and reach one. I always say each one, reach one. It is a powerful tool. You don't need to have an official organization.
That's correct.
You can reach one. I go back to some example I just gave just now about the group that meets here on the outside.
That's correct.
They're a group of young men.
Right.
It's led by two young men, Daniel Michelle and Jerome Saunders. They're the ones who really counsel and meet with them, and they have to pray with people who need help. They do that. If they have to help them, they know how to talk to people who may have addictions, smoking addictions, all that stuff. Because those people, normal people who work on jobs and they have those addictions, they reach out to them.
Yes.
And I watch these young men. I watch the transformation take place because they're reaching out to these young men. And so everybody can play a role in it,
yes.
eh?
Oh, yes.
Everybody, you don't have to have an organization. They don't have a formal organization.
Definitely not.
It's just them caring about their colleagues and reaching out to them.
Meeting people where they are.
Right where they're at.
And I always use this example. Christ is our example, right? Jesus meets us where we are, and he picks us up and takes us where he wants us to go.
Yes.
Not this ministry of condemnation. You see, that's the problem. We want to reach these young men, but we want to condemn them too.
You got it. You got it.
So how you expect me to respond to you when you come with a message of condemnation?
Right.
You understand me?
Right.
Man, sit down and hold my hand and talk with me and share with me. I've seen men who they call so hardened. When you get to them one-on-one, especially in prison, and you sit down and listen to their story, it'll blow your mind. We're not excusing why they're there. We're not excusing what they do.
Right.
But when we sit down and listen to them, and that's what young men want. That's what men want. Somebody who could reach out to them. And this is what International Men's Day seeking to highlight, to focus on positive role model, bringing men's group together, right? And say, look, let's work together. Let's see what we can do. What are you doing? What am I doing? How do we support each other? And all of this help with men. And it's not, and I must say this, even though I spoke spiritual, but it's not a spiritual organization. We want to bring the Rastas together. We want to bring Israel United in Christ together. We want, whoever you are, males coming together. Let's sit down. One of the things our organization did, we had a time where we'd meet on Chapel on the Hill, and we'd sit around, one male would speak for about 10 minutes, he'll share his story, and then we'd sit around and play dominoes and checkers.
Interact.
Yes, we're bonding as males.
Yes.
And I think of one time with Pastor Carlos Reed, the brother, when we met, one gentleman expressed what was going on in his life, in his marriage, and that was like a trigger. Other men began to share, and you had one or two able to say, hey, I've been through what you've done.
Right.
This is what I do. This is what men need, that type of bonding.
is wonderful. I know we're out of time, but I want to say thank you for what you're doing to help build men in our country, and the committee, and the focus on being able to reach them. We salute you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind them of Saturday coming, Trinity Seventh Adventist Church. We're honoring 8 men. 8 men. Awesome. And so we're inviting you to be a part of it. You can reach me at 433-6917, 433-6917.
Awesome. David Williams, thank you for being here on the rundown. We appreciate it, and we stand fully behind you as we go to reach our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tuza.
That's our show. That does it for the rundown. Follow us here at WNS News. I'm Clint Watson. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to stay tuned to the Bahamas tonight at 11 with Royston Jones. I saw him already. He's already in the building, getting the news together for you for 11 o'clock tonight. Please have a great night, everyone. Good night.
At Fort Montague, I'm Opal Roach. This is ZNS.
Every citizen of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas has a right to a fair hearing within a reasonable time. In this episode of The Legal Brief, we will be discussing the case management rules. So, what happens once you are charged and placed before the Supreme Court and you're awaiting trial? What is the process? What are your rights? What are now proposed to be your obligations? All of these questions and more will be explored and answers proffered